By November of 1955, and Thanksgiving Day, we came to the United States. We crossed in Hidalgo, Texas. We all got our shots, and as a matter of fact, you can see I got two big shots because they were the type that the immunizations that they would just give them to you on your arm, and they would get so big. And they gave us our green card when we crossed in Hidalgo, Texas. And the first thing I remember crossing McAllen, going to Hidalgo McAllen, was the streets. My God, I thought they were like so big, because in Monterrey, all the streets are narrow, right? Real small. And I can remember, I can close my eyes and I could go. And then when we got to Jackson Street, there was the Mats building, and then there was another building, and then there was a little apartment in the back, and that's where Papa Pepe lived. It was a little front room, and then it was the kitchen in the middle, 2 bedrooms on each side, and the bathroom as you came into that little apartment on Jackson and 6th Street. And so when we get to Jackson Street, when Papa Pepe went and picked up us in a old little car, you can imagine, we were all so happy. The only thing I kept thinking is the streets, why were they so big and everything's so clean, And I think that's when it hit me that I wanted to be a clean person, because that's the way I've been. We get to the house.
How old were you? How old
I was 5 years old.
5 years old.
When we go into the house, the first thing I remember, Alonso and Luisito and Rudy jumping on those beds. Oh, it was like, we're gonna sleep in a bed, You know how long it was that we hadn't slept in a bed, because it was concrete like this with blankets. That's how we slept, So we thought we were in heaven. We thought we were the richest people, just by having beds, and that's where our life started there. Started out in Travis, and then Gay Junior High, and then the Harlingen High School. Luisito decided that there was no life in Harlingen, and he got his GED because he wasn't going to make it. He was just too old. He felt like he was too old for high school, and he left to go to California to go to work.
He went with my uncle, Nino.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, because he felt like there was nothing there. But he used to, and it was amazing the worst times when we felt like, where are we going to get our next meal? I mean, it got to the point where we didn't have any money, nothing, right? That day, a money order would show up from Luisito. And Papa Pepe would go, and what I remember mainly what he would buy, and I still love that sandwich, bologna, bread, chips. He loved chips. And avocados, lettuce and tomato. Man, we thought we had a feast. I mean, I can just remember that sandwich. And when I bite on that sandwich today, that I put avocado on my, bologna sandwich, that's what I think about, We had paper routes. We picked up bottles because there was no cans, right? So we picked up the bottles because it was 5 cents a bottle. 5 cents. So we would get 5 cents, for every bottle. But Papa Pepe kept on working on the hats and everything. But on the side, he had to iron all these khaki pants that Mr. Mats wore and his sons. And I think to the day he died, he was wearing khaki pants, Well, they were starch. And I don't mean spray starch, the ones that you deep, in the water. And so I remember my dad and my mom working, and they didn't get paid because that was the agreement. 2 years. That was the agreement.
He didn't even get paid for the hats?
He got paid for the hats but the ironing of all the clothes and all that, he didn't get paid, And of course they gave us the rent very cheap, for us to live in that house, So from there we moved to there on Jackson, but in that corner lot. That's where we would all get together, your mom, and then when your dad got married, And then from there, we went down to on Monroe, by close to Gay Junior High. And then from there, we came to this other house that we have, 517 East Monroe. Travis, it was kind of hard because when I first started, it was in first grade. I didn't know any English, nothing, zero. So, and there were no bilingual classes. They didn't teach you, or they didn't try to help you, so you had to do what you had to do. So it was real hard. So all I would do is just say, yes, no, yes, but I didn't understand half or more, So then, but by watching the cartoons and being little as we were, we started, catching up. So I went into the second grade, very low, because at that time they had 3 classes. The ones that were very smart, the ones that were not too smart, and the ones that were just not smart at all. Well, I was in the lowest class because of my English. And there was a lot of discrimination because the first class was all Anglo, of course. The middle was mostly Anglo and a very few, Hispanics. And then the low class was all Hispanic. And so that also created a lot of tension because of the so much prejudice, that's why I can't stand that to this day. And I started second grade, and Papa Pepe was a very smart and wise man, and he had a lot of common sense. But my mother was very intelligent. She's the one that had the brain. She's the one that would get things done, and was coordinated and knew how to handle her money, right? Papa Pepe, no, he was worried about today. So if he had some money today and we were doing good, hey, that's good enough. Tomorrow, Dios dirá, right? And my mom wasn't. She was always, very careful, and all that. And I think some of the intelligence, I got it from my mom, and the common sense and the noble, humble from my father, because he was sweet. He was just a sweet, sweet man. My brothers and my sister, we all had to help out, and we did, and we had to do what we needed to do. But we came to the United States, and I do believe in the American dream because I've lived it, And as long as you work hard and you do what you need to do. And at that time, there was no welfare. There was no food stamps. There was nothing. So we were given nothing. The only thing that I remember getting was our shots for school at Lonsey Hill Park. Remember at the Lonsey Hill? We used to go there and pay $1 to go get our shots. But other than that, we were on our own. We had to do what we had to do. I would go wash dishes, in some of the neighborhood, ladies that needed help, and the boys had paper routes, and Rudy started working at HEB, and so, and Chuy's another story, When he came from Vietnam, not Vietnam, when he came, he was on leave. I think it was like the second year that he was in the military. He went to Monterrey to go visit me, and and he took a girlfriend of his. As a matter of fact, that's the one that lived in California. Can't remember her name right now, but anyway, we went to go see El Padrecito with Cantinflas. He took me to the movies, to the movies. He took me out to eat, and we talked, and he told me, to stay focused and, to be careful, and he says, don't disappoint mom and dad, there's a lot of sacrifice sending you to school over here, and everybody's putting everything, all their faith in you. And I remember him talking to me, and so now that I think about it, he was talking to me like I was never going to see him again. And I didn't, so he did. He was just very concerned, and he says, I know you like good things, and I know that you're going to make it, but you have to be very disciplined on yourself, take care of yourself. Don't let, any guy just, take advantage of you, and, stuff like that. Like a real brother. I mean, like a brother should be. And an immigrant, right? Starting from the bottom. I mean, with nothing, and coming to a country that he didn't know the language. You know, we didn't have the funds, but yet that didn't stop him. That he still did what he needed to do, and he worked very hard. And like I said, he took. If it wasn't paper routes, he would fix bikes. He would put bikes together from pieces of all kinds, you know, to sell them, you know, and he would sell them to other kids. And he would, like I said, started working at the HEB and helped my mom and my dad, you know, with a lot of the utilities because, and then he had a dream. He went to school against all odds, because when you don't even have money to go to school or even have your lunch money, because sometimes we waited until 11:30 when lunch hour, when they ring the bell. If Papa Pepe didn't show up with the lunch money, we didn't have lunch money, because they didn't give you anything there. If you didn't have money, you didn't have money. So we didn't have to take our lunch because we didn't have anything to take lunch, you know. So, but that didn't stop him, you know. And he went to high school, and he had I don't know if Mama Belia ever wrote it down or if it was written in high school. I don't know if we can find it. But Mama Belia remembers when he graduated that what he said, you know, he said you don't have to be a 4-year or a 6-year or 8-year degree to be someone, but if you're a plumber and you do your job good, then it's great, because we need plumbers, we need electricians, we need carpenters, you know, we need people to work, you know, picking up the trash. He said it wasn't what the job is, what the how do you call it, the core value that you give your job, right? So I remember Mama Belia saying that, because he was one of the ones that gave a speech there at the high school. He did graduate, and like I said, for them to accept him in the Marines also at that time was not easy. So he must have, you know, met all the qualification, and he was very proud of being a Marine. He loved it, you know. You know, because he knew that if he didn't go, he wasn't going to have the opportunity to go to college. How could he go to college? There was no grants, there was no financial aid, especially for someone that's an immigrant, maybe for a U.S. citizen. So he knew that his chances of staying behind what was to do what, you know, because he wanted to go to college. So that was one of his biggest dreams. So he says, by going into the military, serving, coming out, I have all my benefits, I can go to school, you know, and no financial burden on my parents, on me, or anybody. And like I said, at that time there was no financial aid, no grants, no nothing. So either you had it or you didn't.
He wanted to serve his country.
And serve his country, but wanted to protect, you know, his family, and wanted to protect all of us, because he knew what was going on in Vietnam, and the terrors, you know, that we go through right now. So I remember in one of the letters that he sent Mama Belia, you know, dice, es que esto lo estoy haciendo para mi familia, ¿verdad? Para la protección. Such an impact, you know, on all of us, that all of us, even though, you know, we all had to take different routes to do whatever we needed to get accomplished, we were very close, you know. Your dad and I were very close. Luisito would come here. He loved my children. You know, the last thing he said when he left here, the night that he died, he came here, watched the football game with Willie, and went to Louisiana to go where, he said, you know, me cuidan mucho a mi güerito, which was Javi. He adored her. We were very close, mijito. So when Rudy died, Alonso went through a hard time, very hard, you know. So his next son was Rudy. It had to be Rudy. I mean, you know, there was just no two ways about it. You know, Chewy, I think that's when he really lost it all, because he never was able to cope with it, you know. I have had a lot of trauma, but I cope with it. I don't let it consume me. But I can't see war movies. I can't see people killing us. I can't. He knows. To this day, 42 years, I will walk out of that room. I will close, if I can't get out for some reason and I close my eyes and I'll put my head down. I can't, because I see him there, you know. I can't hear the name Vietnam. It's just like, it's something that, you know, breaks my heart. So, of course, when we had our second son, there was no two doubts about it. I mean, we didn't even discuss it. When Rudy was born, Willie said, his name is Rodolfo, you know, because that's the impact that he made for us, the teenager. And so we would all have supper early, I remember, and we used to watch in the second room, because Papa Pepe in the first room we had the shop, and then the second room we had it like a little living room, which it was the dining room now, and we were watching the Red Skeleton. I remember like it was yesterday. And when we saw one, because we knew what was going on, because we had already heard when the priest would come in and one of the captains or, you know, the military to the door, we knew that that's what it was, because we had already known of other soldiers, you know, coming down in Harlingen. So that night we were watching the Red Skeleton and we hear somebody knocking at the door, and we all turned around, and the first thing we see from the screen door, you know, the priest and one of the officers, because there were several, but one of them, I just remember one of them and the priest, and we knew. I mean, I knew, you know. So I just, you know, went back to the back room, which is like a little porch in the very back after the kitchen, and I remember kneeling down and I asked the Lord, I said, please, give me all the pain, all the suffering, everything, just throw it at me. Throw it at me. I said, but don't let my mom and my dad suffer, please. I said, just throw it at me, because I know I can handle it, you know. And so that was the first thing I did, just get on my knees, you know. And I screamed at him and I said, you know. So when I came in, Mama Velia and Papa Pepe were just devastated, you know. It was so sad. It was the saddest day of my life. To this day, I can close my eyes and I see him, you know. I see him, I talk to him, you know. I've never let go, never, and I'm never gonna let go, you know. So they stayed with us for a while, then we started getting a lot of people. I mean, it was amazing, you know, how you think at that time you're suffering so much, you know, and yet the Lord is giving you all his love.
The candlelight vigils that they had?
Yes. And a big altar that we made there in one of the rooms, you know, with all his photos and all that. And it was getting harder and harder, Jerry, because every day something would come in from his bags, you know, with his stuff in them. And that made it harder and harder, you know. So it was, and just to see Papa Pepe, I think that Papa Pepe at that time started getting old and lost a lot of weight, and he never gained his weight back. And Rudy knew a lot of people. He played golf. Rudy played golf. He loved to play golf, you know. So like I said, Rudy would have been, you know, either an engineer or, you know, some kind of a great guy, you know.
So he definitely was a role.
Harlingen, it was such a small town, but we knew each other. And Papa Pepe and Mama Belia got to know a lot of people because my mother trabajó en el Camarón. She worked downtown in a little cafe, you know, right next to the HEB. Había un little cafe there. She used to wash dishes there. So me working at the police department, Alonso working for the city, you know, we had a lot. And like I said, Rudy played golf, you know. From 9 years old, you know, until the time that he went into the military was at 18 or 19. Pues he got to know a lot of people,